Good morning. My name's Janet Miller. Can you tell me your full name, please?
My name's Nairan Bunmi.
And can you tell me where you're from?
I'm from Thailand.
Can I see your identification, please? Thank you. In the first part, I'd like to ask you a few questions about yourself. What do you do? Do you work or are you a student?
Well, actually both. I'm a part-time student. I'm doing a degree in business studies. I'm also working as a lifeguard at my local swimming pool.
I see. What's the most interesting part of being a lifeguard?
Well, to be honest, it's not a very interesting job. Most of the time, we just wait by the pool. The most interesting part is probably the conversations I have with the other lifeguards. I've got to know them all pretty well now.
What's the most difficult part of being a lifeguard?
We quite often have to tell children to stop behaving badly, and occasionally their parents get angry with us. Don't tell my children what to do, that kind of thing. That can be difficult.
Would you say it's a good occupation?
Well, yes and no. It's a very pleasant job in some ways, but as I said, it can be boring, and it's not very well paid. That's why I'm doing a degree. I want to get something better.
I see. What are your career plans for the future?
When I graduate, I want to get a job in a financial institution, maybe a bank or insurance company. I haven't decided exactly what yet, but something like that.
Okay. Now let's talk about music. What kind of music do you like listening to?
At the moment, I don't have a lot of time for listening to music, but my favorite type of music is...
In the first part, I'd like to ask you about the place where you live. Can you describe the building you live in?
Yes, I live in an apartment block. It's got, I think, 8 floors, and we're on the 2nd floor. It's a modern block. I think it was built about 20 years ago.
Is it similar to other buildings in the area?
Yes, it is. There are lots of blocks very similar to mine in that part of the city.
Is it in a convenient location for you?
No, not really. It's quite far from the city centre. I'm studying at a college on the other side of the city, so I spend about 2 hours on the bus every day. It's quite boring. The bus is always quite crowded, and I often have to stand. Actually, it's probably the worst part of my day.
I can imagine. Apart from the buses, do you like living in your city?
Yes, I do. There's always a lot going on, and all my friends are there. It's very lively in the evenings. There are a lot of good bars and restaurants, and people come from all around the city to meet their friends and have a good time. It's a very good atmosphere.
What changes would improve the area where you live?
Like most cities, there's far too much traffic. I was talking about my bus journey every day. It's only about 10 kilometers, but it takes so long because most of the time the bus is stuck in a traffic jam. Also, sometimes the city is quite polluted, especially when the weather's cold and there's no wind to blow away the pollution. So, less traffic and less pollution would be big improvements.
OK. Now let's talk about films and TV. What kinds of films and TV do you like watching?
I don't go to the cinema very often. In fact, I haven't been for years. I don't watch a lot of TV, but when I do, I like to watch...
I'd like to ask you some questions about your free time activities. What do you do at the weekends?
Well, my final exams are next month, so at the moment I don't really have any free time at the weekends or any other days. However, in general, when I have free time, I like doing outdoor activities. In particular, I really like land yachting.
Land yachting. What's that?
Well, you have a little chariot with 3 wheels and a big sail. You sit on the chariot and catch the wind in the sail to make the chariot move. There's a big, flat, windy beach quite near where I live, which is ideal for it. It's also called beach yachting and also land sailing. You don't have to do it on a beach. Any flat land will do.
I see. What is it that you like about this sport?
On a windy day, the chariots can go really fast, and because you're so close to the ground, you really feel the speed. It's a thrilling experience. To tell the truth, though, for every 10 minutes you spend on the chariot, you probably spend an hour setting up the equipment and waiting for the wind to be right. But that's all part of the fun, too. It's great being outdoors by the sea.
How often do you get the chance to do it?
In theory, you can do it all year round, but it's not a lot of fun in the freezing cold. It's mostly a summer sport. I suppose April to October are the main months. You also need wind, of course. Another factor is the other people on the beach. In July and August, the beach can get quite crowded, so at that time of year, we mostly do it quite late in the day, when the beach is emptier. So generally, I do it at the weekends, from late spring to early autumn, but a bit less in the middle of the summer for the reason I just said.
How important a part of your week are your free time activities?
Actually, not really that important. Perhaps if I was working, my time off would be the most important part of the week in some ways. But because I'm a student, I don't so much feel the need to let my hair down at the weekends. I enjoy most of the time I'm studying too. It's not like doing a stressful job.
Do you enjoy your free time more now than you did when you were a child?
That's a hard question to answer. I don't really remember how I felt about my free time when I was a child. I used to go sand yachting then too. It was my father who got me started. I used to find it quite frightening, and now I don't. So, in that respect, I suppose I enjoy my free time more now.
What free time activity would you like to try in the future?
I'd love to try real sailing, with a boat on the sea or a lake. I've never done it. I imagine it's probably a bit more difficult than sand yachting.
Now, let's talk about books and magazines. What kind of books and magazines do you like reading?
I'm really not bothered about magazines. I never buy them, and I hardly ever read them. Only if I'm in the dentist's waiting room or somewhere else where there's nothing better to read. I don't really have an opinion about them.
I see. So what sort of books do you like?
I don't read many novels. I'm much more interested in non-fiction. I'm a big fan of biographies. I think there's a lot to be learned from the lives of famous people. I like reference books. Obviously, you can't sit down and read an atlas or a dictionary of quotations, but I often spend time looking through that kind of book. Again, there's a lot to be learned from them.
Do you like reading any other types of book?
Well, as I said, I don't read many novels. I quite like crime fiction. At the moment, I'm reading a book by Michael Dibdin about an Italian detective called Aurelio Zen. It's quite good.
Have the types of book you like changed over the years?
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat the question?
Have the types of book you like changed over the years?
No, not really. Obviously, my tastes now are different to my tastes as a child, but apart from that, I don't think they've really changed at all.
Do you prefer reading books or newspapers?
Well, I'm obsessed with news and current affairs. I buy 2 newspapers every day, and I read both of them. I spend much more time reading newspapers than books, so I suppose that must mean I prefer them.
I'm going to give you a topic, and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say. You can make some notes if you wish. Here's a pencil and some paper for making notes.
Thanks.
Here's your topic on this task card. I'd like you to describe the job or career you have or hope to have in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Now, remember that you have 1 to 2 minutes for this. Don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Right, okay. I'm going to talk about my job as a waiter. It's not a very difficult job, of course, but it's more complicated than most people think. The customers are spending a lot of money and they expect to have a perfect evening. You have to be kind of an actor, playing the role of the perfect waiter. It can be hard to do that at the end of a long evening when you're tired, but I try my best. Most of the customers seem nice people. I enjoy meeting them, and I want to do the best I can to help them have a good time when they come to the restaurant. So, why did I choose to become a waiter? Well, actually, I didn't really choose it. A couple of years ago, I had just finished college and didn't have a job. A friend of mine was working in the restaurant and somebody was off sick, so I went to help out for a few days. Then I just stayed. I started to like it. The basic pay is very low, but I earn quite a lot in tips, so in fact, it's quite well paid. The best part is that I have a lot of fun with the other people who work there. We're all really good friends. The only part of the job I really don't like is the hours. I can never go out on a Friday or Saturday night because I'm always at work. However, I'm not going to do this job for the rest of my life. I've been applying for other jobs recently.
What sort of jobs have you been applying for?
My degree is in media studies, and so I'd really like to work in the media, in some form. So I've been applying to local radio stations and a local TV production company. They don't have any vacancies at the moment, but I keep reminding them who I am. I'm going to apply to some other companies related to the media as well.
Good luck with that. Can I have the task card back, please? Thanks. We've been talking about jobs. I'd like to discuss with you 1 or 2 more general questions relating to this. Let's consider the balance between work and free time. Do you think that the balance between work and free time in your country is about right?
I think it depends. For example, people who have government jobs mostly only work around 37, maybe 40 hours a week. However, in my country, a lot of people have their own small businesses. Really, a lot of people. And if you have a shop, for example, it can be difficult to decide to close. You don't know if another customer is just about to come through the door with a lot of money to spend. From what I've seen, people with their own shops regularly work extremely long hours, up to perhaps 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. The same can be true for other people who work for themselves.
I see. And what problems can be caused by too much work, do you think?
It can cause problems for family life, in my opinion. It's obviously not very good for children if they hardly ever see their parents. And from what I've seen, it can be very bad for relationships between married couples if they just work continuously and never have any fun together. I'm sure this is a common reason for divorces.
What can people do if they feel they are expected to do too much work?
Well, there's a law in my country which limits the working week to, I think it's 48 hours per week, maybe even less. But bosses frequently take no notice of this, so it can be a problem. If somebody is asked to work more than this, they should speak to their boss and ask to be given less work. But of course, this can be difficult. It's not always easy to make a complaint to your boss. From what I've seen, they tend to make employees feel guilty for complaining.
Now, let's consider workaholics. Why do you think some people work so much that they become workaholics?
Workaholics? Obviously, it depends on the person, but in my experience, it's not really the money that makes them workaholics. I think it's just something in their personalities which doesn't allow them to stop thinking about work and switch off. For example, I have a friend who runs his own website. He works on it all the time. I don't think he sleeps much. But he doesn't make a lot of money from it, just enough to live. And I don't think he would make less money if he worked on it less. He's become a perfectionist. Every part of the site has to be absolutely perfect. It's become a kind of obsession for him. I think he's happy, but he just doesn't really have any interests at all, apart from his work. I guess that's just how he likes to live his life. It's up to him.
Thank you very much. That's the end of the speaking test.